Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of This Woman Knows podcast. I am your host, Lisa Ann Alexander, and today I am so happy to have with me Jamesina Greene. Now, Jamesina and I are going to have a conversation about the art of the pivot and what it's like to be blindsided by life in your physical and having to pivot and make adjustments and still have goals and dreams that you want to reach. So everybody, please help me welcome Miss Jamesina Greene to the show. Welcome, Jamesina.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be with you today.
Awesome. So let's talk about who you are. Tell us a little bit about who you are post-diagnosis, what your dreams were, what you were doing, and then we'll get into the diagnosis and how you're doing life now.
Okay. My name is Jamesina Greene, as Lisa said, and I'm a mother and a grandmother, and those are my two greatest accomplishments, I think. But prior to getting sick, and we'll discuss a little more about that later on, but I was, I am still an ordained minister, and I traveled a lot, did women's conferences and workshops. Self-published some books. And I just really enjoyed ministry, and reaching out to non-churched people is my thing. And I just love people, and I love talking to people and making everyone feel seen and heard.
Now, I know that you and I don't remember when we met. I know it's been a minute, and I know it was online, but I know that we were kind of drawn to each other. I think it was because of your writing. That's what it was. It was your writing and the book that you had done. I think, is it I Don't Like Myself? Help, I Don't Like Myself. Is that the title of it?
Yes, right. Help, I Don't Like Myself. Yes.
And so a little backdrop about that particular book, it had everything to do about a diagnosis of depression and mental illness. So tell us a little bit about that particular book and that period in your life, because depression is a real thing.
Absolutely. Well, first I have to start by saying that I was raised in a very strict Christian home. Both of my parents were preachers. All of my aunts and uncles on my mom's side are preachers, and just the whole church thing. And so one of the things we were taught, that as a Christian, you can't get depressed. You can't have anxiety. These things are of the devil. If you stay in the word and you pray like you should and fast and seek God's face, wow, these things won't happen. And so when I found myself dealing with depression, not just having a bad day, but literally days and days would go by, I could not function. And I was afraid to tell anybody, because I knew that the response was going to be, your faith is not active, you're not where you should be in God, you've sinned, something you've done is the reason why you're feeling this way. And so I did one day remember mentioning something to my mother about how I was feeling, and that was exactly her response, what I thought it was going to be. So from that point on, I didn't say anything to anybody about it. I had a 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old at the time. I had a toddler. I was working full-time and trying to go to college. And this particular day, I was actually due at school for a final. And I woke up with a full-blown migraine, and ended up in the emergency room at the hospital. And they had given me a shot for the migraines. I don't know if anybody's ever had a migraine to the point where you have to get, I think it was Demerol or something. And so I remember just before I got ready to fall asleep, the doctor says to me, "So how's Miss Greene feeling?" And I said, "I just want to go to sleep and not wake up." Those words changed the trajectory of my entire life, because I'm thinking I just need a break. like I'm just tired. I need some rest. He heard, I want to kill myself. I want to die. So when I woke up, there was a lady standing at the foot of the bed in a white lab coat. And she told me her name and that she was from the mental health unit. And she had been sent down to talk to me because I had expressed suicidal ideology and thoughts. So I said, no, that's not quite what I meant. And she said, well, the fact that you would even say that you want to go to sleep and not wake up implies that there are some stressors that we need to talk about. So why don't you spend the night here and then we'll talk in the morning. Knowing nothing about if once we get you upstairs, you're going to have to stay at least 72 hours. She didn't say anything about that. So all I'm thinking is, yay, I'm going to get some sleep tonight. So anyhow, I ended up there almost a month because I wouldn't participate. Like I wouldn't talk in the groups and I wouldn't. So they're like, until we're sure you're okay, we can't let you go home. So I remember upon finally being discharged, I had to agree to see a therapist and a psychiatrist. And it was in therapy where my healing began. And I started journaling and stuff like that. And that's where Help I Don't Like Myself came from.
And I remember this book because I was teaching at a conference to women in leadership about depression, about mental illness, and how we needed to remove the stigma. So I remember that's how I think I came in contact with you is about that book. So you were doing a lot of writing, you were doing a lot of traveling, as much as you can do with a teenager or preteen and a toddler. And so then walk us through. So and now you have this mental illness, I guess, diagnosis on top of everything, because that being a Black woman in these United States and being a single mom and all the things, lots of stressors. And did I hear you say you were trying to go to school? You were in college at the same time and working full
Right.
time? And okay. So let me ask you this. Did you have a support system in play for all of that? Because that requires a serious village.
Not consistently, no. That's why I ended up having to drop out of college. And I kept saying, I'll go back, but I never did go back because I did not have that go ahead to school, I'll make sure the kids are taken care of kind of thing. I didn't have that,
Understood. And that's real for so many women. That's real for so many, regardless of color.
Absolutely.
That's real for so many women. So we have some time passes by and there's a moment where your body does something very different and that we've got to go see a doctor. Tell us about that experience. Your blind side moment, the moment you have to pivot. So tell us what your pivot moment was.
Well, as we mentioned, I loved to travel. I loved going to women's conferences. I loved speaking to women. I loved working with young people. And then my parents died, and I had planned to move back to Atlanta, Georgia, to get back involved in my ministry and stuff like that. But I developed this really bad cough. And it went on for months and months and months. And eventually ended up being diagnosed with sarcoidosis in my lungs, which has had a major impact on my life. But prior to that, I remember one day after my parents had passed, I went into this building and it was a place of business, and I was talking to the receptionist, and I remember her asking me my name, and I remember giving her my name. And the next thing I knew, I was in the back of an ambulance, and I'd had a stroke, and it was determined that the vertebrae in my neck had cracked, and that's what caused the stroke. And that's when I had to have my very first spinal fusion surgery. When I came out of that surgery, my whole left side was paralyzed and I couldn't speak. So I ended up in a local nursing home rehab center. And it's just been one thing after another ever since.
So I want to make sure I have this correct. There was a vertebrae in your neck that cracked that caused the stroke. So vertebrae in your neck just go cracking? Was there, had you had back issues or?
See, that's another thing that I want the women and everyone that will be listening to this podcast to understand the importance of paying attention to your body and the importance of taking care of you. For years, I will say 10, 15 years before that even happened, I was always having neck pain, always having neck pain. And people would say, well, you know, everybody has a stressor point in their body. Yours is probably your neck whenever you're stressed out, you know, because my neck was always hurt. So one day, my dad took me to see a chiropractor. And he showed me the x-ray that, you know, how you have that swan curve thing in your neck.
Yes.
Well, he said mine was like bending, my vertebrae were starting to fuse together. It wasn't curved like it was supposed to be. So he said, you really need to get that taken care of. See, see an orthopedic doctor, see someone, get that taken care of. 15 years go by, maybe more. I just keep dealing with the neck pain and whatever. And then that's what happened.
Jamesina, I did not know. So
Lisa say, your story gets worse and worse every time I talk to you.
it's such a reminder to listen to our bodies and to not ignore, because our body tells us. Our body will definitely tell us if there's pain in the body, then there is dis-ease. Something is not at ease in the body.
Correct.
And so you have this moment. So you had the stroke, you had the surgery, and I know that was a traumatic experience. So not only were you just blindsided by the health issues, well, you weren't expecting for your vertebrae to crack. You was like, okay, my body will just keep doing what it's supposed to do, and it's going to support me, and we're going to keep going and doing all the things. And your body said, time. Right. Said, no, we can't do this anymore. Got it. So after you had the stroke and you were in rehab, and so tell me about, how did you begin to shift and pivot? What did that look like at that point?
Well, a main thing that happened was I was lying there, and the people from the physical therapy and occupational therapy were coming in to evaluate me to see what needed to be done, because like I said, I couldn't walk or speak. And I heard the supervisor say, it is a shame that she is as young as she is, and she will probably never walk again or be able to talk. So I'm lying there and I'm thinking two things. First, I can't believe she said that where I could hear her. Mm-hmm. Because I can't talk doesn't mean I can't hear. And the second thing was, she has no idea who I am. Mm-hmm. Because I refuse to not ever walk again. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life in this nursing home. That was a major pivot in my mind for me. And so I started working harder at my therapy. I started doing extra things to make sure I got out of there. And it was said to me by several professionals, like, I've never seen anybody work so hard. I said, because I can't be here the rest of my life. I have stuff to do. And so I was released, and then I had to have therapy at home to help with the walking and everything. And I want everybody to hear this. As my walking was getting better, my speech was getting better, the pain in my neck was getting worse. So I go to see my surgeon for a follow-up, and I'm like, it feels like somebody stabbing me in my neck. So he says, okay, let's get an MRI, see what's going on. send me for an MRI and tell me to cut, make me an appointment for 2 weeks later. When I come back for that appointment, he's looking at the X-ray, the screen, and he's just staring at it, and his head is tilted to the side, and he's got this look on his face, but he's not saying anything. And I'm thinking, well, this is not good. Like, say something, dude. Then he looks at me and he's looking back. Then finally he says, I'm not really sure how you're even walking around and talking to me. I said, what are you talking about? So he points to the screen. He said, you see that thing right there? He said, that is one of the screws that has come out of the metal plate that's supposed to be holding your neck together. Because when you have a fusion and they take out the vertebrae and they either use bone from somewhere else in your body or they use cadaver bones to put back in your neck, and then they put it, this plate on there with screws, and over time it's supposed to fuse back together. But because the screw had come out, the plate was twisted. It wasn't in place like it was supposed to be. He said, and the point of the screw is laying in your nerve. That's where that pain is coming from. He said, but the fact that you're turning your head and talking, he said, I don't understand that. He said, well, here's the thing, Miss Greene. I can't even let you go back home. You have to leave. He said, you have to leave straight from here and go back to the hospital. So here we are, 3 months after the first trauma. Because I very clearly remember that first surgery when I'm in the hospital room and the nurse raises my arm and it falls back down. And I'm like, I don't feel anything. Like, that's when I realized that side was paralyzed. So I'm thinking again, oh my God, I don't want to go through this again, but so I go to the hospital, they admit me and everything. I have this first fusion 3 months later. This time, the surgeon nicks, because all of these are done through the front. The surgeon nicks my jugular vein. And this 2.5 hour surgery goes into almost 11 hours. And my family is told they lost me twice on the table because they couldn't stop the bleeding. So they had to bring in a vascular surgeon to tie out the veins in there before the neurosurgeon went back in, cut out more vertebrae, and to put a larger plate in there. So back to the nursing home I go. Yes. And I tell you, I have not had a day that I'm not in pain since then.
Jamesina, I love you, and I always remember. Sometimes I forget because I know your story and I know the pain that you're in on a daily basis. So when I have a back spasm or, something's weird, and it's like, I don't feel right, I quickly just like, keep it quiet, and I think of you and I think of how you show up. You show up online. You're hilarious, first of all. So if anybody follows you, she has wonderful, wonderful ministry. Her books are incredible. Her writings, absolutely, just this wonderful author and entrepreneur and nonprofit founder, executive director. She's funny too. She cracks me up. And I just, the fact that she can show up and make people laugh in spite of her own pain. And I often will forget. And it's like, sis is in pain, and sometimes you'll make it known. It's like, I'm not feeling real good today. And so how are you able to do so, to show up, to still do the work in pain? You had that was a huge, major life change for you to have this happen, this very physical thing happen. What keeps you pursuing your goals and your dreams?
I don't want to sound cliche because you know how I am about that.
Yes, I do.
I'm not into the cliches and I'm not into the religious rhetoric or anything like that. But I honestly my faith sustains me
Mm,
because I have learned to have a relationship with my creator over having a religious experience.
mm,
Because the religiosity is what said to me, or what was said to me by other people. If you were doing X, Y, and Z, you
mhm,
wouldn't be depressed. If
mhm.
you were doing X, Y, Z, that wouldn't be happening to you. But my relationship with my creator lets me lay in bed some days with tears rolling down my face, saying, I can't move. I'm in so much pain, but I'm still alive.
Mm.
And just when I have those days when I feel like I just can't do another thing, and you have walked me through some of those days, I just don't want to be bothered anymore.
Yes.
Humor is another thing that keeps me going. Sometimes people say, I say something and someone will say, oh my God, that was so funny. And I'm like, really? I didn't realize it was funny. And my sister said I have that Bob Newhart dry sense
Dry
of humor.
wit, dry wit, and
So
comedic
that's,
timing. Yes, ma'am.
yes, but those, my faith, my humor, my children and my grandchildren, um, they give me a reason to get up. They give me a reason to say, okay, I can't do what I used to do, but I can do something.
That point. So I wanted to
Yeah.
talk now that we've had to pivot. What does pursuing your goals look like now on the other side of a botched surgery and a scarcidosis um, diagnosis, which completely changed the game for you?
Now I realize I've accepted the fact that I can't travel around the country like I used to. I'm not going to be going international flights and cruises and stuff, like all this stuff that I had on my bucket list. But I've connected with people online who are in these other countries that I can still share the ministry with. I can still share me with. Last December, I was so honored to speak with some young ladies at a school in Ghana, and so that was like the highlight of my year because I always wanted to go there, and I don't know that I'll ever get there physically, but I left an impression on them. The lady who sponsors their school says that every now and then someone still asks about me, some of the girls. So that makes me feel like my life is not in vain. And I remember very clearly when I went through my depression, not the diagnosis. I mean, I go through depression more than that. But when I was feeling like, oh my God, what is going on here? After my parents died, I'm like, okay, now I can go back to my life. I put everything on hold to help with my mom who had Alzheimer's, help take care of my dad who had a number of diseases. And then the stroke happened. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, am I being punked? Like, why can't I just like enjoy life? And one of the things I kept crying about was that I wanted to travel, that I wanted to reach people that I probably would never see on the street every day. And then I thought about my dad saying to me one time that my ministry was going to go way beyond uh, my local area. And I have a friend that lives in Delaware. She's a pastor also. And she used to always say to me, your ministry is way bigger than Salisbury. Your ministry is way bigger than the Eastern Shore. And so when I got sick, I thought, well, that's the end of that. Like, I went through my whole just give it up, the whole Elisha crying and yeah, all through the juniper tree crying and just giving up. Like, just it's done. Like no ravens feeding me, nothing. I just was done. And then it dawned on me that people like you, people in other states, people in other countries are benefiting from my story. And I have been blessed with the privilege to meet you in person. But many people I never will meet in person, but I still am impacting their lives. So on this side of all of that, I've had to accept, first of all, that things are different, that's where the largest battle comes in, I think, is when we're fighting that change. Like, we've realized we got to pivot, but we don't want to pivot because we don't know what that pivot looks like on the other side. We don't know what it's going to look like. Once I turn, what's going to be over there? And that fear of not knowing what's coming next keeps us locked into where we are. But I'm grateful that in spite of the days when I want to cry because I hurt so bad, and the days that I do cry, that I did take that pivot. And that's where I am now. I'm on this side of it and I'm loving it. I never did. I thought I would always be depressed, but I love who I am right now. I love the people that I touch. I love the people that I know. I love the people that pour into me. I have some people that I can call, such as yourself, when I'm having a day. And I can say, listen, I need some help over here. And I don't have to hear, well, go read your Bible. Well, have you fasted this week? Have you meditated? Listen, I'm not here trying to hear all that right this minute.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to stop from just jumping off this table. So can you just help a sister or not?
Yep. I get that. That's very, very real help. And I think we could have another conversation, you and along with another potential client that I have, about how to respond to people and what to say to people who are hurting, who are grieving and going through these processes. Because what I'm hearing is like people say some really inappropriate things. That's how I'll phrase that. People can say really inappropriate things to people that are hurting. So I know that we talked about your grief process. There's this mourning of what's lost. And it's like, I won't be able to do the things that I really wanted to do. So let's talk about anger, because that has to play a part into this as well. How did you come through the anger part of this, of being angry? And did you blame God? And because that's a real thing. It's like, who do you hold responsible for this? And how did you overcome that piece?
Absolutely, I was angry. And I still have moments like sometimes when I'm thinking, what the heck is like, why, what are you doing? You know, and I know they trained us and they taught us and they poured it, into us in Sunday school, along with the red juice and the cookies. Like, don't ever question God. You cannot question God. Oh my God, you're going to get struck by lightning. And I never understood that. Like, I've always been known as a rebel, like since the second or third grade, because I'm always asking questions that people be like, you're not supposed to ask questions, just do it. And I remember saying one day, if God is supposed to be like my father, I talk to my father all the time and ask questions. I say, hey, Daddy, what you doing? Can I talk to you for a minute? And we would sit down. I would ask him questions. He would give me advice. He would answer my questions. Sometimes he'd just look at me and shake his head. There were times he did that. But I never felt like I couldn't talk to him. So what is this God thing that you're telling me? Oh, he loves you, he cares about you, he's concerned about you, but don't ask him no question. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I asked him, like, what is this? What is happening to me? Like, I know that you told me I was supposed to do XYZ with regard to writing books and ministering to broken women and ministering to moms and dealing with mothers who have children who are incarcerated. You gave me these things. So what am I supposed to do now? I'm laying here with this big old ugly neck brace on. I can't even bathe myself. I can't walk from one room to the other. Literally, I was crawling on my hands and knees to get to the bathroom. What happened to all of that stuff that I'm supposed to do? And I was very angry about it. And I didn't want to hear no stories. I didn't want to hear no scriptures. I didn't want nobody singing no hymns. I didn't want no praise and worship music, none of that.
No, and that's a real space. That's a real place that requires real answers. And if you don't have a real answer, that's when you just sit quietly and you just support. And it's like, I'm here for you. I don't have answers, but I'm gonna just sit here with you. And we're gonna cry together. If we're gonna be mad, we're gonna be mad together. Because we don't have some things we just don't have answers for.
At least I want to share this right quick.
Yes.
My oldest sister died in 2005, and she was, you know, she was an evangelist also, and she had been real sick, had a lot of health challenges. She was pregnant with my nephew and got poison in her bloodstream that the hospital kept sending her home, saying nothing was wrong with her. By the time they figured it out, it was too late to do anything about it. So she lived and the baby lived, but there were always challenges after that. And right toward the end of her life, all of these people were saying, God is going to heal her, raise her up. She's going to preach again. I remember literally 2 weeks before she died, a preacher came to town and somehow had great faith and confidence in it. He said, God said he's going to heal you, da 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 da. So I'm like, okay, fine, she's going to be healed, whatever. 2 weeks later, she dies. So I was in church that Sunday morning, and the pastor calls me to the front of the church. So he calls me up there to pray for me and my son and whatever. And he says to me, I asked the Lord, what happened with your sister? Because I know what I heard. And I asked the Lord what happened. And he said, the Holy Spirit said to me, some things you won't understand until you get to the other side. And the whole church starts clapping, just going up, praying a praise, whatever. I'm just standing there. So he said, Evangelist Greene, what's going on? I said, that might have worked for you, but that didn't do anything for me. And he said to me, he said, you know what? I tell you what I do know. I know that you know God. I know that you have a personal relationship with him. And I know that you hear him. So what I want you to do is to go home, find you a quiet place, and you have a conversation with him. Tell him how you feel. If you're mad, you talk to him and tell him that you need an answer that will bring you healing. I went home that night. Of course, I'm going back to my seat. People are looking at me like I'm a nut, but I'm going back to my seat, and I get home and I'm praying that night, and the Holy Spirit, and I'm crying like she just died. I mean, just broken. And the Holy Spirit gave me an answer, because I was like, this doesn't make sense. You know, people are saying she's going to be healed. Everybody can't be just lying like that. Like, what is going on? She had a lot more life to live. Her daughter was graduating high school that year. She died in January. Like, you could have let her live to, I just was having this whole thing.
Yes.
And after I calmed down, and the Spirit said to me, while I heard your prayers and those of the others, I also heard her prayers.
There you go.
And what she wanted,
yes,
the complete healing and the unconditional love that she asked me for, can only be found in my presence.
Okay.
From that point on, I was healed from that.
Yes.
So my point with sharing all that is, if you have something that you want to talk to God about, don't let anybody else tell you can't ask questions, you can't be mad. Because it's not like he don't already know you mad. You're not hiding it from him.
No. All that cussing and fussing you doing, that's very, it's seen and heard. So I know that you are the founder and executive director of a nonprofit. I think it's A Mother's Cry. So tell us a little bit about A Mother's Cry, and when did you found that? Was that founded before the pivot, or is this a pivot business?
This was actually founded before the pivot.
Okay.
But life happened.
Yes.
And it kind of got put on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just feel like this is my calling for right now. Initially, when I started A Mother's Cry, it was a way to get mothers together, mm-hmm. for us to heal together, to share, to just be women, mm-hmm. that are mothers, versus having to be mothers and women who have nothing left to give. Because I was seeing so much going on with our children that was negative, mm-hmm. as a result of what the mothers were dealing with. So I said, let's get together and let's get healed, and then we can be better mothers. It has now evolved into my main focus is mothers who have children who are incarcerated and
Yes.
the injustices and
Yes.
things that they deal with behind the wall. And we are going to be a voice for them
Can I say that I
regardless.
just love this? I absolutely love how this has worked out, and now you are working in this is advocacy work for a much need. When you start talking about the prison system, you start talking about Black and brown men and women in the prison systems, and someone has to advocate on their behalf for the foolishness and folly that goes on behind those walls. So I absolutely love this setup and how and you can pivot, and I love how it shifted. And so now you can do this kind of advocacy work from your house. You can bother your
Right,
governor on a
right.
daily basis, be in his email, send snail mail, leave voicemail
That's
messages.
right.
Absolutely. So the work that you're doing can absolutely, it fits where you are right now. And I love how it just all
Exactly.
lined up, how it's like, okay, this is what I can do. And it's like, this is where we're shifting to, and it works perfectly. So I
Absolutely.
love it. So you've written articles for one of the blog sites that I have. I think nonprofit storytelling,
That's
and so
right.
you've written stories for that blog, and you get to be this voice and advocate. Can I just say I love this, and I love that work that you do.
Thank you so much.
I love that you are still writing. I know that you are a songwriter as well. I remember you were going through the process of getting your work copyrighted, trying to find lyrics and things of that nature. So you have not let all the things hinder you. Some people would have just said, you know what, call it quits and go, I just can't. But I love how you find a way to still do. I know that you're still writing your children's book. There, this has not stopped the work, just maybe how that work got done,
Yes.
because you're still international, but you're international from in front of your screen.
Yes.
Um, Still having an impact, just differently than what you might have originally imagined. So I really, I have said that I was coming off certain social media platforms. I've been trying to come off of them for many years now, and you are the reason why I stay in one such place. And being a business person, you kind of have to stay. Well, you don't have to. There are some people that have businesses and they're not on social media, and I appreciate and love those people. Um, I said I can't come off because Jamesina's here.
Don't leave me, Lisa.
That
Don't leave me.
yeah, and so social media is not just about sponsored ads, sponsored posts, what you ate for dinner. This social media is for quite a few people the one way that they get to interact because they can't leave their home, or it's a task getting out the house. And so the social media takes on some, this is my outreach, this is how I can reach the world. And so tell us how your new community has kind of changed and how social media fills a void.
Oh my God. I literally have said that I don't think I would still be here mentally or maybe even physically if I didn't have my social media connections. I spend a large majority of myself with myself. Like there's nobody else here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, until you know who comes to visit, but we're gonna talk about him. Um, bless his heart. He's home getting
Akil.
ready for school. So let
Yes,
him go ahead
yes,
and do
yes.
that.
Team Akil.
Um,
Yes.
um, but if I didn't have I remember way back when my dad died. It was not too long before my father died that I started on social media, I think. I would not have made it through that period if I didn't have people
Mm-hmm.
that I never seen before in my life inboxing me,
Mm-hmm.
sending me messages, posting things like I was so saturated with love that I couldn't wallow in my misery.
Yes.
Yes, I was in mourning, but I couldn't be swallowed up by it because these total strangers
Yeah.
were loving on me.
Yeah.
Um, and each phase of my journey where I've had to pivot, social media has been there. I think about people, older people, disabled people, people such as myself, who have no family, who have no social media. I don't know how they do it. Like, it's sad to me to even think that somebody could. Now, I choose a lot of times, even before I got sick, I'm not been a always out in the people's faces kind of person. So I spent a lot of time alone anyway, by choice. But when I was ready to go, I could just get up and go. Now I can't do that. I was speaking to a business earlier this morning about some information that I wanted to get to use for an event I have coming up next month. They said they can't mail it to me. And when they looked at my address, she said, "You're just like 5 minutes away from us. You can just come and get it." So I said, "Well, let me help you with something real quick. You have made the assumption that I'm able to come and get it. Everybody you speak with is not physically able to just come, even if it's 2 minutes away." She said, I didn't think about that. I'm so sorry. I'll go ahead and mail it." And so I think sometimes people forget that there are people like myself, um, who really need this social media contact, this connection with people that make you laugh, with people that cry with you, with people like you that will pull you back off the ledge when you're having those moments, people that will help you say, "No, you don't need to do that. And here's why you don't need to do it." Um, I'm grateful. I'm more than grateful. I keep getting put in Facebook jail, but that's because they got issues, not because I have issues.
To tell you about your humor, and that's how we end up in Facebook jail. And so I've been trying. It's like, no, you can't say that, sis. It's that the community terms, you're gonna violate those. And so social media is community for a lot of people. It is community. They find their tribes there. There's so many Facebook groups, because I know you're part of scarcidosis groups there, and have met people and have even grieved losses over people that have
Right.
passed away. I mean, there is true community, and community is where you find it and where you make it, and with people who you enjoy and want to be with. And so I can say that that's a reason why I stay and pop in as much as I do on certain platforms, because otherwise it would be two fingers to the side and I'd be gone. Jamesina, thank you so much for sharing your story and how you've been able to pivot. So tell people how they can get in touch with you. Where's the best place to get in touch with you? How they can support you, buy your books? How do we help support you in the work that you're doing?
Okay, you can email me at AMCJAMI. That's AMCJamie@gmail.com. You can also reach me on Facebook under Jamesina Greene, Instagram, A Mother's Cry,
I'll put
_61.
I'll put it all
And
in the show notes as well. You do a weekly podcast, right? Let's Talk Destiny, and I think that's on YouTube, correct?
it's Let's Talk Destiny. On YouTube, it's called Let's Talk Destiny with Jamie Greene. Awesome. And there's some amazing content there, yes, that will absolutely bless your life.
And I think you interviewed both sons, right?
Yes.
Both sons. So definitely take a look, find Jamie. You can link to it. I'll put it in the show notes. Again, Jamie, thank you so much for sharing your story, and for showing us how to gracefully pivot. And when I say that, being graceful doesn't always mean that I'm smiling all the time, I'm happy all the time, everything is rainbows and unicorns, because you've clearly shown us that life is not always rainbows and unicorns, but by gracefully showing us how to go through the process, go through grief, go through the anger, come to a place of resolve, and go, this gets done, but it just gets done
Yes.
differently. So thank you so
Yes.
much for your story. And everybody, go and connect with her in all the spaces. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of This Woman Knows podcast. For show notes, blog posts, guest booking information, and sponsorship opportunities, visit us online at www.thiswomanknows.com today.